Hi, my name is Josh Frank, and this is a paper that I wrote in response to a question, should Christians read secular literature? Many Christians in today's culture believe reading secular literature to be wrong or even sinful. As Christians, we do indeed face the question of how something fallen may be wholesome and beneficial to our faith. However, many will simply cast aside secular literature altogether without giving it deep thought. So, should Christians read secular literature? There are three primary reasons for why I affirm the previous question, and argue that it is not only permissible, but should be encouraged. First, although the given author may not be a Christian, due to the doctrine of grace, unbelievers are still capable of demonstrating the communicable attributes of God through their literature. Secondly, even the Bible itself quotes secular literature. And lastly, and this is primarily referring to texts written in a pre-Christian era, readers are capable of seeing the worldview into which Christianity broke into and revolutionized. Despite the fall of man, humanity is believed to have kept the ability to imitate God. Truth, goodness, and beauty are the main attributes man retained after the fall. To say that secular literature does not deliberately give all laud and honor to God is one thing. However, to say that there is nothing inherently good in secular literature is an entirely different argument, and a false one at that. The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway teaches readers a valuable lesson. This particular motif is that if someone in life finds some good thing, they must be willing to fight for it at the cost of their own life if necessary. In this story, Santiago, the old fisherman, hooks one of the biggest marlins ever seen. He is in no shape physically to land this fish by himself, yet after days of perseverance mixed with blood and sweat, he is able to kill the beast and return home. Another Christian motif in this story is that of the sharks. After fighting this fish for days, the fish slowly begins to attract sharks. Santiago faces these sharks and defeats them, instead of them defeating him. Just as Christians are called to fight off the temptation to give up and surrender to whatever trials we may face. As Hemingway wrote, "But man is not made for defeat. A man can be destroyed, but not defeated." Although this particular author was not a Christian, he was still able to convey the message of self-sacrifice for a higher good. These motifs are true, good, and beautiful, and are something that we Christians are called to do. Would any Christian argue that Hemingway was wrong to say that a man can be destroyed but not defeated? Is it not written in Luke 12:4, "I tell you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body and after that can do no more"? Does this not imply that there is nothing here on this earth that can defeat us, yet we may still be destroyed? What other things does the Bible tell us? Many Christians will argue that we should not read secular literature, but do they not realize that even the Bible itself will quote secularists? In 1 Corinthians 15:33-34, Paul writes, "Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. Come back to your senses and stop sinning." The middle section of that quote, "Bad company corrupts good character," is a quote from the Greek poet Menander, who lived approximately 300 years before the birth of Christ. In Titus 1:13, Paul quotes the poet Epimenides when he says, "Even one of their own prophets has said, 'Cretans are always liars, evil brutes, lazy gluttons.' This testimony is true." Paul also quotes another Greek author in Acts 17:27-29 when he says, "He is not far from each one of us, for in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. Therefore, we are God's offspring." In this passage, Paul quotes both Epimenides and Aratus. Paul references these Greek poets in order to relate to the Greek worldview and provide common ground between his audience and Christianity. It is highly unlikely that any Christian would argue that we should not read these passages of Scripture due to their secular reference. In fact, this notion is utterly ridiculous. If a modern Christian man was to attempt to convert a Muslim, would he not first want to familiarize himself with the Muslim beliefs in order to relate to the man? Lastly, when Christianity first started arising in a predominantly Greek culture, what was the culture like at the time? Now, we could try to better understand this ancient Greek culture by reading historical accounts. However, these accounts are themselves secular and are based off secular literature and art. Does a man truly understand Greek culture by reading a history textbook or by reading the Odyssey? Many people question the methods of a classical Christian education and ask, well, why is it necessary to read the Iliad and the Odyssey? How does that help your faith? The best answer to this question is that by reading these books, we are given a glimpse into the culture into which Christianity first arose. We see in modern times that a shift in culture seems to be a slow process. So why is it that Christianity was able to change culture overnight? Learning and understanding these changes awakens our moral imaginations and makes Christianity all the more wonderful. If a secular text leads us to more deeply ponder the truth, goodness, and beauty of our God, should we not desire to read it? Therefore, it should not only be permissible, but desirable for Christians to read secular works of literature, because by doing so, we learn about the communicable attributes of God, and our moral imaginations are awakened by works of such antiquity.